Our fifth presenter came from 6,000 miles away, from Edinburgh, Scotland. And please welcome Ross Sakis to the stage. Ross? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. We want to get a good, you got to give us that good accent. It's like
I was going to wear my kilt, but it wasn't ready in time, so.
We'll go get you one, all right? We'll go get it. All right, you're on.
All right. Hi, judges, and hi, audience. Thank you very much for this opportunity. One of the biggest problems globally is pharmaceutical access and cost, and we've all felt that cost need as well with the issues like the Affordable Care Act coming by to kind of help reduce those costs. And we're one of those companies trying to cut down costs as well. So the real problem, whether you're in a developing or developed country, the two main issues are access and cost. Universally, they've been recognized by the WHO and UN as two of the main issues facing the world right now. The WHO estimates that up to 50% of medicines are wasted. This is mainly due to lack of refrigeration or improper refrigeration. And the UN has actually 3 Millennium Development Goals related to health and pharmaceutical access. But overall, it's one of the primary objectives that they're trying to address right now. Specifically, if you look at something like Ebola, there was actually a case study done about our company and how if the technology was available and there was a suitable vaccine, it would have been able to prevent a lot of the pandemic outbreak. But then if you take it back to the US, UK, other more developed regions as well, oncology and the general cost of pharmaceuticals is also exorbitant. A lot of people are priced out of the potential market as well. So this is an example. There are about 4 different variations, but this is the primary example of the technology that we would be replacing. In the left vial, there's a powder component, and in the right vial, there's a diluent, and you mix the two together. It actually needs an extra syringe as well for the mixing process that is separate from the one that will actually administer it. And in a minute, I'll tell you about how our solution is better. But just some key highlights, about 80% of drugs are packaged in these multiple containers. About 2.2 billion people don't have access to actually available medicine, so they're called preventable diseases that could have been addressed already. And between packaging and logistics, it's roughly 1/3 of the total cost of medicine. So it's something that may have been overlooked, but it's obviously a big part of the overall cost driver. Also, with these current systems, there's increased contamination risks. You have cases where when it's exposed to the environment, even just for the second of transferring the liquid, you don't know what could actually be entered into the new vial. There's frequent human error. The most common thing is actually not matching up the right powder with a diluent. So for example, if you delivered insulin to a non-diabetic, you could actually kill them. And the lack of storage capacity due to high volume. So if you imagine, those are 2 containers as opposed to our single vial system, which is right here. So what we've done is we put the powder component into this cap. The liquid is down here in the vial, and once you press down that piston, it actually activates the mixture and makes it ready for use. In the next slide, you'll see the process. And just to give you a breakdown, the equivalent process with the 2 vials would take 12 to 15 steps. Although it doesn't seem like it's a big difference, healthcare workers' time, especially in developing countries, is very important. And if they can vaccinate 10 or 20 people more, that's even a big savings as well. Some of the key competitive advantages, we right off the bat almost started with patenting and trademarking. We knew that it was important to secure the space because you're dealing with Goliaths in the industry. And we've gotten global endorsement from the WHO and the Gates Foundation. They've both been instrumental in helping us actually open doors, because otherwise you're just a regular startup. The US FDA and WHO, this was also very key. Contrary to a lot of medical devices, we actually don't have any regulatory approval that we have to go through. It's not a final finished product on its own until the medicine's added. So what we have to prove is called non-inferiority, just that it delivers the same potency and efficacy as existing devices. And the 2 key points, in my opinion, it's not limited to a single delivery mode. So we're starting with injectable, but we're actually transitioning now to develop the inhalation, oral, and ocular applications. That would give us all of the possible delivery modes, as well as, more importantly, that it's not limited to any single medicine. So it's not just vaccines or antibiotics or anything like that. It can be for everything. And I'd just like to reiterate that 80% of all medicines are in this multiple container formulation. So a brief background about our team. I am pretty young, but I've actually been an entrepreneur for about 10 years now, and I've started companies in 3 different countries, and I'm very pleased to be in Buffalo right now. Professor Bullfield was the person in charge of commercializing the Dolly cloning technology from Roslyn and selling it to Garon in the US. Dr. Lejeune is a world-renowned oncologist who worked at the European Molecular Biology Lab, and Professor Tsakis is a professor of genetics who also specializes in cloning and animal breeding. James King is our non-executive director, so he brings more of the business dimension that most of our team also has, but not to that extent. And immediately, I'd like to focus on the fact that we're already actually looking into new staff in Buffalo. Since it's going to be our operations center, we're going to hire about 1 to 3 new staff. We're estimating within the next 3 months, and 1 new staff in the United Kingdom, which is already underway. Some of the key applications, vaccines, and specifically diabetic treatments, I'd like to highlight that because we are trying to discuss with the Seneca Nation. There's a large problem with diabetes, and ideally I'd like to donate those the diabetic treatments to the nation since we're already going to be hosted by Buffalo. So the market analysis is a huge potential market. It's projected to be $79 billion by 2017. But what I really want to focus on is the fact that a single vaccine sells about 140 million doses. We're cutting the cost by around 40 cents per dose. So if you estimated it, it would be around $56 million in savings per vaccine. So that's a huge incentive for manufacturer adoption. We've had extensive discussions with manufacturers, and actually even more than the savings is the fact that now when a drug's about to go off patent, they can actually file a new patent that now it's that drug in the single vial system. So it's another 20 years of sales as opposed to, as well as the significant savings that we're offering. Our key development highlights, we're extremely fortunate to have such world-renowned sponsors from such an early stage. And honestly, a lot of it wouldn't have been possible without them. They provided their preliminary grants. A lot of the endorsement opened a lot of doors where we had none. We've got the UK patents filed. The US patent is also, a new one has just been applied for. We have one already pending. And we have global priority status. We're intending to file in India, China, Europe, and North America, so US and Canada, and Japan. The model prototype's been finished. We've tested a single vaccine, which actually was entirely effective, so it was very, very good news for us. Now on to the key points, the business model. Getting into the space of manufacturing is extremely cost prohibitive, especially as a startup, so we're intending to spend the first 3 years licensing, and roughly around the 4th year when we have enough revenue, we want to set up our manufacturing facility here in Buffalo. And I'll get to a couple of the employment stats that we're projecting, and you'll see that there's a huge spike from 10 to 100 employees, and that's the year that we're opening the plant. So we've got about 9 months to go in terms of finishing the studies, and that's roughly August 2015. And we're going to do dual licenses, so one to the actual packaging manufacturer that'll make the device, and one to the pharmaceutical company that'll add their own product to it. So on the left is a brief breakdown of roughly what we need. This will actually get us through to revenue generation, so there won't be any kind of follow-on funding or anything like that that we need. The key fact is that the final studies are going to be the majority, roughly half of the total money that we need. We have about $230,000 right now, and either, ideally the top 43North prize would fill in the rest. Otherwise, we'd have to go back to our existing investors, which would push back our timeline a little bit. So our projected revenue goes from 2 licensing agreements. The justifications for them are down below. So it's 2 in the first instance, up to 6, and up to about 17 by year 3. And just because I want to focus on this, we intend to do new manufacturing, new employment, and we've already started all the discussions with the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus and the other organizations locally to see where we might be able to collaborate locally. Thank you.
Well done.
It was shorter yesterday, I promise.
Yeah?
Yeah. Thank you.
I had to spend most of the time looking up the word diluent.
Yeah, sorry.
Now that I know what it's a dilution agent, for those that didn't know that, but that's, thank God for Wikipedia. Okay, first question. Ken.
I want you to go back to the 2 slides, because I didn't see it all.
Go back.
Can I still?
Yeah.
This one? Or?
Go to the that one.
This one? Okay.
Yep. Just walk me through that again.
So what we have here is roughly, the bottom part would be a single license for a single product. So let's say a malaria vaccine. We request an upfront fee of $300,000, minimum order quantity of 10 million because, as I mentioned earlier, these are produced in hundreds of millions, so it's not unrealistic. And of the total 40 to 50 cents roughly that we're saving, we're charging about 8 cents per unit. And actually this structure has been validated by already 2 of the pharmaceutical companies that we're in discussions with. So those figures add up to 1.1 million. So in the first year, we're already in the potential of 2 licensing agreements that I'm negotiating right now. And then once they've had kind of an initial trial phase, they'll expand and apply a few more and a few more and a few more.
Got it. Thanks.
Who is your biggest competitor besides the existing 2-vial system? Is there anybody else that's doing anything else closely?
Probably in developed countries, it would be the pre-filled syringe, which has become very popular now. So what it basically is they'll have already liquid filled in the syringe, and that's shipped, and then the doctor just has to apply it. The main the main issue with that is the fact that it takes up 6 times as much volume as ours does. So you could theoretically send 6 times as many vaccines as opposed to 1 with our technology. In the developing countries, actually, there hasn't been any change. So those 2-vial systems have existed for about 40 to 50 years, since 1970, and there hasn't been any innovation to change them.
So the big trade-off then is the transportation cost, where it's very beneficial in emerging markets, probably less so in high volume, short distance markets.
Yeah, but it's more than just the logistics. Actually, the packaging is a bigger cost driver. It's 20% as opposed to the 14, which is the logistics. But yeah, because we're cutting the manufacturing costs, it helps. Well, the company that's going to be selling it could either cut their costs down or keep a greater profit. So we've got kind of the binary effect of benefits there. Yes.
Can you help me understand how you're cutting manufacturing costs? I mean, making 2 vials with stoppers versus a composite vial it would strike me that manufacturing might be more complicated for the composite vial.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Basically, our main thing, we came up with the idea first, and then we kind of backtracked and tried to solve how it would work. The main issue that we solved, which is actually the one that most people couldn't, is how you could seamlessly integrate it into manufacturing. And in a sense, if you want to imagine the cap with the powder would just replace that other vial going through the same exact filling process. So then it just adds and gets capped on. The components themselves, I've priced them out, and they're half price of the 2-vial system. And when you look at things like the pre-filled syringe, it's even like fractional, so it might be 10% of the cost, because the syringe is very expensive.
What about loading the drugs? That again, to my simple mind, looks like it might be more complicated in your system as opposed to just filling a couple of vials.
No, so what happens is the liquid actually goes in and then it gets freeze dried. So basically all of the water is removed to keep it as a powder. It makes it more heat stable. What we did then is basically have that all happen within the machine. So the same way it would happen in the vial currently, it's happening in ours. So it's absolutely no change to the machinery, no capital infrastructure added. And most importantly, the companies don't have to go through the regulatory approvals again.
And do you have to make sure that there's no leakage?
Yes. That was part of our first test, was sublimation, dye test. We did a lot of extensive stability. We pushed it up to 50 degrees Celsius to see if it can be heat stable. And yeah, it outperformed the current system in every way.
So you mentioned the syringes are so expensive.
Yes.
And is there a danger that in actual use people will start reusing syringes because it's not in a single package, and so you end up getting other infectious diseases not because your system isn't designed well, but because out in the real world, bad things happen?
Well, actually, we're not intending to even provide the syringe at all.
No, I know, but if someone else does, are people going to reuse syringes because your drug, they can buy 20 vials, use one syringe and create?
That would be, I mean, the doctor would be administering the vaccine at the end of the day. This isn't a self-injector kind of thing.
No, I understand.
And we're not intending to send the syringes at all, so it has nothing to do with our technology.
I understand
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with your technology, but out in the real world,
Yeah.
where syringes are expensive, is this going to create a moral hazard for people to reuse syringes that are dirty?
I honestly don't know. I don't suspect that it would be any different than the 2-vial system that's already been in operation.
No, but versus the single vial system.
Yeah, it would be this. If anything, it would be the same as existing technology.
Okay, whatever. Just wanted to raise that
Okay.
as a concern.
Yeah.
Randall.
I want to give you credit for what you're working on. Delivering vaccines to the underdeveloped world is the single biggest way to save lives. That's why Bill Gates has invested more money in vaccine delivery than anything else philanthropically. And I know they're very, very focused on how you get vaccines into the market in an efficient way. So so I want to actually ask about the Gates Foundation, because if this works, trust me, they will fund this. They are spending billions of dollars trying to figure out how to do things similar to this. So I want to kind of push on your relationship with Gates, because again, if they're into this and they think it works, they will fund it. And if they're not, I'm a little skeptical.
So we got the first seed funding, so to speak, of $100,000 from the Gates Foundation. There actually isn't some comparable follow-on at that point. If you go back, they're developing a new venture investment arm where they would kind of typically co-finance. But in reality, I didn't consider that because the 43North came up much sooner. And the process to go through, while it can be quite timely, especially going through all the grants and applications, it could take 9 months to a year, and that would push our timeline back too far. But we are actively being in contact and supported by them.
Great. I guess that's all the questions. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So tell the audience what the Scottish connection is.
So I grew up in Greece and America, and then I moved to Scotland to study, and I started the company there. Actually, I didn't get to touch upon it, but it has a lot of corporate tax rate benefits, so it's made sense to keep it based there. But now with the equivalent tax benefits from like Startup New York, there's no reason to keep it there and not move it here.
That's fantastic to hear that.
Thank
Great.
you.
All right, thanks, my
Thank
friend.
you.
Good job.
Thank you.